For this project we are going to need purse thread, crochet hook and pair of scissors. To start with, I'm going to make a magic ring. Chain 2. This chain 3 will be counted as first DC. So total 15 DCs in the magic ring. To close the loop, slip stitch into the very first DC or third chain from the hook. Chain 3, DC in the same loop. This line is of 2 DCs in the each loop. So my 15 stitches will become 30 stitches. Speciality of this project is we are going to work only in the back loop. This front loop we will use it later on for making petals of my rose. See, this is how our design will look when we will work only in the back loop. This front loop will be useful for creating our rose petals. So line number 2, 2 DCs on each DC, 15 stitches will become 30 stitches. Line number 3 will be chain 3, DC in the same loop, DC on DC, increase in the next loop, we started with 15 DCs in the magic ring. Second round is 2 DC on each DC, so it became 30. The third line is 2 DC, 1 DC, 2 DC, it means 15 more increase. So 15, 30, 45, likewise it will keep on growing. I always prefer to work on both the parts simultaneously so that stitch count matches. My 2 identical circles or side portions are ready. I have done all the work in the back loop only so that you can see the front loop available for further work. My last line where I have stopped is increase 9 DC on DC and increase. So in between 2 increases I have 9 DCs. My circles or my sides match exactly. I will start with petal portion now. For petal making, I'm going to consider this as my guideline wherever I have joined with slip stitch, and this is where I will join the thread. As you know, I like to do my first chain or first stitch with the shorter tail or the tail which we will weave in the end. Then with the thread we will use for the petal making, I'll make 3 chains. Now we will be doing all our work in the front loops, whatever we have left open. So in the same loop I'm going to do 2 more DCs, 1 and 2. Next loop 2 DCs. I am weaving in the end simultaneously, and this being a purse thread, I will burn the end and stick it to the base. 2. This is the third loop. I am taking 2 DCs in. And this is the fourth and the last loop which I am taking for 2 DCs. So total I have made 8 DCs. See this, 2, 2, 2, 2. This chain 3 I am not counting. Again chain 3, turn your work. Two DCs on each DC. So my 8 will become 16. And this is my last stitch where I'll do 2 DCs. Now see this. Now we need to stitch this petal to the base. 1, 2, 3, 4. In the fourth loop I am going to slip stitch. After stitching this, attaching with slip stitch, chain 1. Now what I will do is I will do reverse single crochet. Now see, you have to pull this loop little longer, go into the first chain, see, generally we move forward when we are crocheting, but this is the stitch where we are moving backwards, and that's why it is called as reverse single crochet. So just pulling up a loop from the previous loop and pull through both the loops on the hook. So the previous loop, pull little longer, insert the hook, pull this one and pull through 2. Pull the loop little longer, it gives nice edge. I will do single crochet for all these 16 stitches and then attach this side of the petal to the base and then start with the next one. Pull the loop little longer, insert in the next stitch. Now this is the last stitch where we will do our reverse single crochet. Now we need to stitch the other side to the base. Now we have left 4 stitches from this side. We'll leave another 4 stitches from this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is how the petal will look. Now in these 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, we will make our next petal. So now we have 8 double crochets. See this? And chain 3. Turn your work. Make 2 double crochets in each space or on each DC. So like the previous petal, we will have 16 DCs. Once again, please understand, I am not counting this chain 3. Like first petal, on 4 spaces we did 8 DCs. On 8 DCs we did again 2 DCs on each DC, so 16 DCs. Now we have to join the petal to the base. So I am going to join it where my first petal starts. So insert a hook inside out and slip stitch. Again chain 1. We will do reverse crochet on these 16 DCs and then I'll meet you at this end to attach the second petal to the base. We have to pull the loop little longer so that you can see the twist properly. See this, how beautiful aging reverse single crochet gives to the petal. We are done with reverse single crochet on these 16 DCs. Now it's time to join the petal to the base. Now again I am going in the starting place. I am inserting the hook from inside out, inside of the petal to the outside of the petal, and again a slip stitch. This is how my center of the rose or 3D flower will look. Now I will chain 2 and slip stitch into first SC of the next line. See this. Now petals have to be overlapping so that you can see the flower has bloomed properly. If you open any rose, you will understand that petals are not one after another. They are overlapping and they cover each other. So this is how our first petal is covered by second petal, and now again chain 3, I will do 2 DC in next 4 loops, just like the very first row. I have taken 8 loops. Chain 3, turn your work, 3 DCs in first and last space, and rest everywhere 2 DCs on each DCs. So instead of 16 we will have 18 DCs now. Three DCs in first. I am not counting chain 3. Rest everywhere 2, and again in the last DC I will do 3 DCs. This is last space where I have to do 3 DCs. 1, 2 and 3. I picked up 8 DCs. In the first and last DC I made 3 DCs on 1 DC, rest everywhere it's 2 DCs on 1 DC. So now I have 18 DCs total. I need to join this petal to the base in the 6th loop from the first place where we started our petal. I am going to slip stitch. Again chain 1, reverse single crochet on these 18 stitches, and I'll come till this end. After reaching the other side of the petal while doing reverse single crochet, again calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the 6th loop from the hook attach the petal with slip stitch. This is how our layer 2 is forming now. Chain 3, 2 double crochets in next 4 loops. Again chain 3, turn your work. In the first and the last place I'll be doing 3 DCs. 1, 2 and 3, and in the rest of the places I am doing 2 DCs on 1 DC. Eight DCs in the first row, 18 DCs in the single row. Now again I want to join this petal. Start of this petal. Put your hook inside out and slip stitch. Again chain 1 and reverse single crochet till the other end of the petal, or reverse crochet on these 18 DCs, and I'll meet you here. I'm done with all reverse single crochets and ready to join this petal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the 6th loop I'm going to attach the petal with slip stitch. Now we are left with 1, 2, 3, 4 loops. Again chain 3, 2 DCs in each loop. I have picked up 8 DCs, chain 3, turn your work, 3 DCs in first and last DC, rest all spaces 2 DCs, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. In this last space I'm going to do 3, 1, 2 and 3. Now it's the time to attach the petal. Go to the place where we have started this petal, slip stitch into this space, chain 1, reverse single crochet on these 18 DCs, and then we will join it in the place where we started this petal. This is how our 3D flower will look after 2 lines. First line of 2 petals, second line of 3 petals. Now we know that with each number of row, 1 petal is going to increase. We started with 2 petals in the first row, 3 petals in the second row. Now the third row will have 4 petals. I want to show how I plan my petals. This being my last point of joining for the row number 2, what I am going to do is chain 3 and slip stitch into this loop. Now count 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 4 stitches I will use for picking up those 8 DCs. Then I will be slip stitching petal after 7 loops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. In the 7th loop I have already put a stitch marker. Now here my next petal will start. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. So after that one more stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So I will stitch this petal after 7 loops. So it will come here. Now 1, 2, 3, 4. So here again I will pick up next petal. After 7 loops I'll stitch it here. I'll pick up next petal here and I'll stitch it here, which will be our starting point of the line. This is how each line will add 1 petal to the flower, And please understand, one loop here and there doesn't mean much. Don't leave this main line, so that you understand where you have started, and from there you can start counting. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch here, these chain 3 were for changing the line, moving on to next line. Now chain 3, 2 DCs in next 4 loops. So 1, 2, 3, and fourth one. After I have picked up 8 DCs on those 4 loops, chain 3, turn your work. Now in the first, mid and last DC, we are going to do 3 DC each, rest everywhere 2. So first 1, 2 and 3, then 2, 1, 2, next is again 1, 2, this is 1, 2, 1, 2, here I might add the third one. Now 2 DCs, 1, 2, 2 in the next one, 2 in the next one, and 3 in the last one. 1, 2 and 3. Now I will attach this petal here. I have already kept it marked and ready, so life is easy. Slip stitch, chain 1, reverse single crochet on these 19 DCs, reverse single crochets are done. Now I will slip stitch here. See, keeping loops stitch marked will always help you to know where to join the petal and from where to where pick up the stitches. So this one petal is done and attached both the sides. Now next petal I'll pick up from here, attach it here. Next petal I'll pick up from here, attach it here. Next last petal I'll pick up from here, attach here, and we'll continue. This is a very interesting but very simple and good looking project. This purse will really turn heads when you take it to the party. This is how our project will look after 3 lines. If first line makes 2 petals, second makes 3, third line makes 4 petals, and fourth line will make 5 petals. Now I want to tell you that it's better to use stitch markers, plan your petals, and then start working around it. So this is where I have closed the line. Now I will chain 3 and slip stitch here. Once I slip stitch here, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 loops are for picking up those 8 DCs. Now this time I will slip stitch into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I will leave gap of 8 loops, and in the 9th loop I will attach the petal. Wherever I will attach 4 loops, I will have for next petal. Again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again next petal, again gap of 8 loops. Next petal, gap of 8 loops. Next petal, gap of 8 loops, and then I will come to the original place where we have started. So always plan your petals and then start doing it. Your life will be very simple and easy. So I have marked my petals. Now I will start working on it. Chain 3, 2 and 3. I will slip stitch into the first stitch. Please understand, we are not leaving this reference line. This is helping us to count our stitches and mark our loops so that making a petal becomes very easy. So slip stitch. Now I will do chain 3. This chain 3 I have never counted as a DC while making petals. So in next 4 loops I am going to make 2 DCs each and pull up total 8 DCs. 1, 2, next loop, 1, 2, next loop, 1 and 2, next loop, I will remove the stitch marker. 1 and 2. Now I'm done with picking up the 8 loops. Chain 3. Turn your work. Now the slight change that I have made for this line is in the first, in between and the last space I'm going to make 3 DCs. 1, 2, 3. So instead of 16 DCs, I'm going to have total 19 DCs. This will give little bit of flair to the petal. I always suggest that you make both the sides at the same time, line by line, or you write down your pattern, whatever you have made for part A, and then repeat it for part B. If you do not have stitch markers, you can use yarn pieces, you can use thread pieces, you can use safety pins, you can use hair pins. Don't feel stuck for the resources. Use your own resources, whatever is convenient for you. See to it that it doesn't damage your design or the work that you are doing. So here, first, last and in between 1, I have done 3 DCs, rest everywhere 2 DCs. So total I have 19 DCs. I have to join the petal in the 8th loop from the start of the petal. Now after I insert needle and do my slip stitch here, what I'm going to do is now reverse single crochet and come to the other side of the petal. Let me zoom in a bit. Reverse single crochet gives very nice edging. For this line, instead of 16, we are having 19 DCs on the second row. So we will have 19 reverse single crochet for the edge. See how beautiful it looks. Pull up the loop little longer and then insert the hook. Pull up next loop. The previous hook remains and then new loop comes. This creates the twist and this is how we move ahead. It's very nice stitch for edging. See, once you understand how I'm making petals and how I'm placing them, working on this project is really not all that difficult. Plan your line and then start work. Use stitch markers very lavishly to save your work from being frogged, or you might have to work extra. So I'm done with 19 reverse single crochet. Now where I will stitch the petal? My petal is going here. I have already stitch marked. So joining is always from inside to outside. Chain 3. This will not be counted as a DC, and in the next 4 loops I'm going to pick up 2 DCs each. This makes my 8 DCs for the petal. Again, same way, chain 3, first, in between and the last stitch will have 3 DCs each and rest will have 2. So total we will make 19 DCs on these 8 DCs. I will join the petal here, here, the end of my previous petal, and then on the other side I will stitch the petal here. Stitch markers come really handy. So I will see you after completing this line and making 5 petals. After line number 4, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals. Now line number 5 will give me 6 petals. So this is where I have started my work. This is my reference line. So chain 3, I will slip stitch into this loop, 4 lines, 4 loops for petals, 8 loops gap, 4 loops petals, 8 loops gap, 4 loop petal, 8 loop gap, petal, gap, petal, gap, petal, and eventually I'll come to the starting point. This is how my 5th line will go. Now same way. Let me show you first petal. Chain 3, slip stitch into very first loop, this chain 3 is just for moving from A line to B line. These 3 chains are not counted in any of the calculations, and when all petals stand erect, they are not even seen. So chain 3, slip stitch into the loop which we have taken as a reference line or starting point, chain 3, now 2 DCs in next 4 loops. That should give me 8 DCs. And this is the 4th loop. Chain 3, turn your work. Now first loop will have 3 DCs. So 3, 1, 2, 3. Now In the middle we had done only one. This time we will do it for 2 loops. So instead of 19 DCs, we should have 20 DCs. So 3 DC, 2 DC, 2 DC, again 3 DC, again 3 DC. See how we are increasing the number of DCs on the petal. That more number of DCs will give you stretchability across the joining points. So again 2 DC, two DC, and in the last loop 3 DC. So for this round we are having 20 DCs on the petal. Now where I will join, I have already placed the stitch marker. So my life is very simple and easy. Joining is from inside to out. So this, remove the stitch marker. As I told you, I like to work on both the parts simultaneously. So here one line less is done, here the marking is done. So I'll finish with this part. Again attach the stitch markers to this part, finish this one. Meanwhile I will mark this part. This is how having symmetry in both the parts. This is how our purse will look after 5 lines. 5 lines means 6 petals. Now I have marked it for line number 6. Line number 6 means 7 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Like all previous lines, chain 3, slip stitch into very first stitch marker, which is on the reference line. We'll pull up 8 DCs on the 4 loops that I have marked for the petal. Chain 3, pulling up 2 DCs, eight DCs in the 4 loops, chain 3, turn your work, first space 3 DCs, 1, 2, 3, second space 2 DCs, third space 2 DCs, fourth space 3 DCs, fifth space 3 DCs, again 2 DCs in next 2 spaces, 1 2 1 2 and 3 DCs in the last space. We are going to slip stitch in the loop where we have inserted our stitch marker. And then chain 1, reverse single crochet alongside the petal, and then I will slip stitch into this stitch marker. Chain 3, pull up 8 DCs from next 4 loops and continue with the pattern. I'll see you at the end of this petal. I have completed 6 lines. Now I have marked the piece for the 7th line. So 7th line will have 8 petals. Now I am going to make one slight change, that for petals instead of 4, now I am going to leave 5 loops. Chain 3 and slip stitch into this first reference line loop. See, I am not leaving this line. Now I have 5 loops for petal and 9 loops for gap. So petal number 1, 5 loops, 9 loops, 5 loops, 9 loops, 5 loops, 9 loops. So my petal number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Line number 7, 8 petals. As I am taking 5 loops now, so instead of 8 DCs, I will have 10 DCs in the first row, and in all the loops I will have 2 DCs. First and last will have 3 DCs. So 22 DCs will be my second line of petal, and then this side I'll join here, this side I will join here, and as you see, overlapping continues. Let me show you one petal, and then again 1, 2 and 3. Slip stitch into first reference stitch, remove the stitch marker, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Now 2 DCs in next 5 loops, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This time I have 10 DCs for the petal, chain 3, turning my work, 3 DCs in first and last space, rest everywhere 2. So total I will have 22. Oops, I forgot to. 1, 2, 3, 1st and last loop will have 3 DCs, rest all are going to have 2 DCs. Three DCs in the last. For slip stitch, always put your hook from inside of the petal to the outside. Now reverse single crochet till other end, and this other end slip stitch into this stitch marker. Whenever you are short of stitch markers, you can use multiple colors, but just use in pairs so that you understand this is the petal space and this is the gap space. This is a petal space, this is a gap space. Petal space, same color will help you understand better. After chain 3, 2 DCs in each of the 5 loops. Ten DCs for the first line. Chain 3, turn your work. 3 DCs and 3 DCs in first and last loop, rest all 2. So we will have total 22 DCs in the second row. Then I will join petal here. See, do you see the overlap? This is petal number 1. This will be petal number 2. One, 2, and 3. One, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. In the last loop, 3 DCs. One, 2, and 3. This is my previous petal. Here is the joining point. Chain 1 and reverse single crochet across the petal and join this side here. This project is very simple, very simple. You just need to understand how we are aligning our petals and how we are creating that overlap. There is no standard rule for number of DCs on each petal. You can design your own petal, just maintain the overlap and you will get this beautiful 3D effect. I will see you at the end of this row when I'll join this petal here and come to my reference line. This is how our work will look after 7 lines. See this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7th line has 8 petals and 8th line will have 9 petals. So I have 5 loops for petal, 9 loops for gap. 5 loops petal, 9 loop gap. 5 loop petal, 9 loop gap. Likewise. I'm telling you once again, please do not stress out if you have 1 or 2 loops extra. You can always adjust. That's why we are using stitch markers. So if you notice, now my petals are spreading. And what happens? See, below this petal, these 2 lines are almost gone. So this would be my last line of petals. I am not going to make petals in last 2 rows. The petal in the 8th line will cover up this whole portion. So this will be my last line of making. Please put your stitch markers and get in action. This being last line, what I am going to do is 5 loops, pick up 10 DCs and 3 DCs on each. So last petal will have more spread. And 5th loop. See this, 10 DCs. Now chain 3, turn your work, 3 DCs onto each DC, so 30 DCs I'll have. This side attaching would be near this stitch marker and for this side attaching will be near this stitch marker. Now I will be joining to this stitch marker. Joining is always, hook will be placed from inside and it will go towards outer edge. Slip stitch, now chain 1, reverse single crochet on all these 30 stitches. And we are reaching at the end of the petal. Last stitch. Now we will attach this petal . Now see this. This is how my petal will reach. This is how my work will look after completing 8 lines. As I said, the petals have reached to the brim of the base and I am not willing to do any further lines. If you are interested, you can do 2 more lines. Best thing about this project is you can design your own flower. So you decide how many loops for the petals, how many loops you want to keep the gap. If you keep the gap more, then what happens? This base portion gets stretched or wavy, and then whosoever will bind this purse will have trouble in making it a real circle. Hope you enjoyed doing this project with me. Now I will make a side strip and join both the parts together. I will join the handles and then send it for making. This is how my purse will look after it comes back from the binding. Now if you see this, these are my 65 stitches which I am going to keep open, and this is my belt which has got chain on it. Now how I made this belt for making the width of the purse. So if you understand, I had started with 15 D's in the magic ring. 11 lines means 165 stitches at the circumference. So I made 165 chains starting from the chain number 2, single crochet in all. So 3 lines of single crochet, then 2 lines I have left 65 stitches, just made 65 chains here and continued again 3 lines. This is how this belt is made. Now I have got this also lined. Only thing remaining is now to attach So I am going to take a darning needle, take double strand of the thread. I have my darning needle in the place and I am just stitching it edge to edge, leaving 65 stitches. So these are the loops. Last line of loops that I will pick up, and these loops I will stitch to the belt loops in between width that has become like a belt. So here I will stitch it and make my purse complete. As I told you, when you are working with purse thread, keeping a lighter handy is very important. You have to burn the ends so that they don't come out or they don't get frogged. So I have first taken out the marker where I had placed it, attach the double thread, and I will start stitching it here. See, number of stitches match with each other, so don't worry about how to do it. You will have stitch to stitch matched. Both has only 165 stitches to match. Take both the loops, 2 loops from side A, 2 loops from the width belt. Having both the loops will give strength, and see how strong the joint looks. The thread is little longer, so it becomes bit tough, but this is a work of patience, and as we enjoy doing this, take a breath of fresh air, deep breathe, and continue working. And this is how my final purse looks. So rows this side, rows this, both sides, and a chain in the center. Of course, it has got one chain pocket inside and enough space to keep your mobile, maybe a small pouch or wallet, but it has got enough space. This purse is strictly to be taken in hand like this. This is a very spacious purse. See my wallet. I am putting it first. Then it will accommodate your mobile, keys, and your spectacle cover. It holds everything. I am eternally grateful to one of my customers, Anju, for the order of dozen of these purses, and I am excited to make in more colors.